Hi everybody, just giving you a heads up that this episode is kind of an experimental one. It features a test recording that my brother John and I did a couple months ago. He lives outside of Detroit, Michigan, so after I recorded our convo I decided to make it an episode. We talk about, let's just say, work travel stories, going to open mic nights in Canada, his take on the Magnificent Seven remake. I tell a story about a hostage situation I was in the deep backwoods of Washington, and a lot more. Stay tuned, I think you're going to like it. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a dork living in Portland, Oregon, who spent too many years listening to podcasts and not doing anything creative. This is my attempt to rectify that, to create and contribute something where I talk to people about their cultural obsessions and try to give some recommendations of my own. Welcome to Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person.
Expense reports are tricky. I mean, I did mine today for the past 2.5 trips that I've had, and it's just obviously it's a pain in the butt, but we've got per diem.
Okay, and, yeah, whereas at this job I do not, so.
Oh, so you just gotta save receipts and stuff then.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So at least the good thing about per diem, it's just like, okay, here's what it is, but you don't want to take advantage of, so like the last trip, when I was just in, Austin this week, it was just for internal meetings. So I was there from Monday to Wednesday, and then all of Tuesday was every meal, everything was totally covered.
Did they take you to Torchy's?
They did not take me to Torchy's. However, I did see Torchy's now that I believe there's a Torchy's en route from the airport to downtown, if I remember correctly.
Yes, there is. My buddy Chris, when he that was the first place we stopped when he picked me up. This was last year, I think, because the last time I went down to Austin was, I think, May of 2015.
Yeah. Well, the number of, the nice part was that I flew down with one of our SCs that happens to live in Livonia as well. But so we got to catch up and get to kind of meet a little bit because we saw each other around the office, but spent some time together. But in the cab ride, because there's no Uber, there's no Lyft, on the last day that we learned there were some, I forget what other.
They don't, they don't have Lyft on there?
They don't have Lyft. They don't have Uber. They had something I think called Fare.
Do they have Halo?
I don't
know. Oh, maybe that's an older one.
Anyway, yeah, but
Austin ride share.
But anyway, so we had to take a cab, which was weird. It's strange how awkward that feels now without having to Uber or Lyft. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Yeah, at least even in Portland. Yeah, even in Portland, I will take Lyft because even talking to the drivers, they're like, so good side effect, and they're like, yeah, they enjoy one far more than the other. I think the only reason that Uber has the edge or whatever is because they deliberately targeted much more like media, like celeb or media types who would talk about it. It's kind of like, oh, go on.
I think there's just more Uber drivers, though. I think it's just more of a popular app as opposed to Lyft. But that's also a regional thing as well, because when I went to Salt Lake City, which is an awesome city, they didn't even have Uber, but they had Lyft. Lyft was everywhere.
Okay, yeah, so, I'm looking at the results here. They passed Proposition 1, which was getting, which they both, for whatever reason, they left. Oh, okay, that's why, because it was setting just rules and regs. And Uber and Lyft, especially Uber, yeah, they popularly just get really whiny about having to just comply with basic operating standards. Oh, here we go. Okay, there's one called Fair, F-A-R.
That's the one. Fair was in Austin. That was what they said to take.
Yeah, Get Me and Fasten and Insta Ride.
Yeah,
Ride Austin,
I don't want to, for
Wings,
one trip to the
trips.
airport,
Yeah.
or one or two trips back and forth. I don't want to create, download the app, create an account, put in my credit card information, and have that floating out there. So
yeah,
the old. Anyway, back to what we were saying though.
Anyway, yeah.
Back to Torchy's. There were probably, whether you want to call them a taco stand, a taco truck, or even a taqueria, there had to be double-digit numbers of these of a place where you could get a taco of sorts from the airport going downtown before you even get downtown too. And I thought that was pretty cool too, because you really phase in from the airport and then you're out kind of in like this weird Texas space. With super old-ish houses that remind you of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then you get closer to the city, and then you start seeing a lot of tire shops, and next to a taco truck, and then you get downtown and it's a little bit more sparse for that stuff. But it was pretty interesting to see the 22-minute phase into the city. I thought that was pretty cool.
Right, you start jacking up the you have climbing up gentrification and status and class levels but with each mile you get closer to the downtown area.
Well, plus you kind of forget you're in Texas too. At least I did. It didn't feel like Texas.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like Dallas. It didn't feel like Houston, and it didn't feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere in West Texas either. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic. But I liked it a lot though. But yeah, it was.
Had you ever been to Austin before?
No.
Yeah.
No, that's.
Now you're seeing. This is why Austin was my other number 2 city when I was going to pull out of Ann Arbor. It was my 3 cities that I was going to head to were Portland, Seattle, and Austin. Yeah. And the 2 reasons I didn't go to Austin were because it was big and sprawly, it was way too hot, and it was surrounded by Texas. And
yeah, it's true. The hot part was nuts. And it wasn't even that bad, but on the last day when you were walking where the buildings would shade you, it was comfortable. But
right.
The second you stepped out in the sun, it was like a microwave. It was crazy.
Yeah,
It's October as well, so it's not even peak season.
We were down there. First time we went down there was, God, this would have been. This was August of 2002 when I can't remember if it was Spirit Airlines. I don't think it was Spirit Airlines, but there was a borderline charter company that would do ultra cheap trips from Flint through check either Flint or Detroit. I think this was one of the two. Effectively, you could get from Bishop Airport in Flint to DFW for like $100 round trip or something.
Mm-hmm.
So Carlos, my roommate Carlos, said, "Sure, hell yeah, I'll go with you." And just on a scouting trip, because this is back in the early aughts when I was still scouting around to figure out where the hell I wanted to go to get out of Michigan. And went down there, got in touch with our relatives because Uncle Ovid and Aunt Laura were still living in Dallas, and flew down there and hung out in Dallas. Stayed with them in Dallas, and it was great. They're like, "Well, here, you guys need a car. Here, we'll lend you our spare car. Oh, and you need a cell phone too because it's 2002, and coverage rates are weird. So here, have this." And so they lent us a cell phone and a car. And we hung out in Dallas for a few days and then drove to Austin. And so I got to hang out and stayed with my friend Suzanne down in Austin in 2002, which was... I can remember Ann Arbor really started changing and it probably, the change in the gentrification, it probably started long before, but it was really palpable by 99, 2000. But at least in Austin, the massive wave hadn't hit yet. To the point where you could, whereas you go by now, the campus area, like the area around campus which looks almost identical to what the area around campus in Ann Arbor looks like now, because it's all the same franchises.
Well, yeah, I can understand that. It's just different because Austin felt like a much bigger version of Ann Arbor.
Right. Which is why it was
bigger.
Yeah, which is why I was going to head there.
But being in Portland as well, I mean, I think definitely Portland and Austin are pretty much contemporaries, just with different locale, with the lush green of the Pacific Northwest versus the friggin' hot desert of Texas. But definitely very similar as far as, in my humble opinion, very similar in size and scope and
oh yes, very much
culture.
So. Yeah, Austin and Portland were are kind of, if you're of a certain age, your band will orbit between the, you're like, oh man, our band's pulling up stakes, we're heading down south, or bands would move from one city to the other.
JD, you should have seen in Austin at the airport. You should have seen the amount of, like, there were at least 3 bands on
oh yeah
Wednesday when I go to the airport, like Wednesday around noon. Like, you could tell there was like 4 or 5 dudes that you could tell they were in a band, and then they had kind of like the entourage a little bit around them, and I didn't know who they were, and I wasn't going to go ask them anyway because I'm a grown up. But you could definitely tell that they're the only profession they could have had would be in a band or possibly a skateboard / production company, or they work for Viceland. Who knows? I don't know. But that was
/ pharmaceutical distribution. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Do they?
And it's funny. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Austin too, there's I'm drinking the shitty beer right now from Latitude 42. This is his brewery in Portage, and it's Party at the Moon Tower. Like,
Portage, Michigan or Portage, Maine?
Portage, Michigan.
I can't remember. What the hell's Portage?
Everybody's going crazy about this beer right now, and it's Party at the Moon Tower, like Dazed and Confused, which is an Austin movie,
right?
Which kind of pulls it all together. But this beer sucks. Anyway,
what kind of beer is it? Just a regular Pilsner, or?
It is a double IPA, and that's IPAs are the flavor of the day, and the Michigan folks are going batty over it, so I bought a 4-pack, and it sucks. So that's that.
Imagine being out here. The amount of, it's one of the things that I hated about, that I strongly dislike about, God, even since I've been out here since 2004, the Portland craft brew culture, which is just, it's somewhat just like hoppy as shit, and it's like, what's wrong with, I don't want, stop with the endless amounts of like IPAs and ales. Just no, this is like, no, I don't want you to give me goddamn German beers. What's wrong with you people?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just you have to be into it. Like Block 15 and Great Notion, those guys are they're murdering beer right now. They're doing amazing things with beer, but you have to be into the bitter. Like those beers you picked up for me, especially the IPAs one. I mean, the IPAs one, that sounded good. But they do taste like almost like fruit juice. They're doing these crazy things, and it's kind of
like lambics or
style of beer. It's a specific yeast strain. It's these hops, and there's breweries that are all over now that have figured it out, and Great Notion's a perfect example of it, and even Block 15 out there too. Like, and there's breweries there's one in Columbus. There's a bunch in New England area because they already figured it out. But they all figured out the same kind of like configuration, and they all taste very similar, and they're great, and they do taste like kind of like a kind of soury bitter juice. And it is friggin' fantastic, and people are going bananas for it. Like with me and Kalis, like Kalis knows no bounds with his IPA preference, and he'll pay any dollar amount to get. There's websites you can just buy, beers, which is not exactly legal. But
well, hey, like I said, if he wants to, my rates, my distribution rates are quite workable, and I'm out.
Anytime you go to Great Notion, you want to get Juice Box, or they had one lately called French Toast that just came out, or even Double Stack. All those beers, you want to get crowlers of those. He will he'll pay for that and the shipping plus some as well.
Anyway,
well, with your with all the travel for work and everything, do you ever plan? Do you try to plan whether it's in the previous job when you were traveling a ton, or even now? Do you ever try to strategically plan your travel around either? I know you're not into beers as much as I am, but just to plan like, oh, I want to go to this certain location, so I'll go here for work. And then I'll also get to go do some fun stuff as well.
I could not in the current job. Thank God. Part of the reason why I took it is that right now there are only. I think there are effectively, with the exception of like the. Turns out one of our suppliers and also one of the main engine builders and engine programmers is actually somewhere in Novi.
Oh, in fact, kidding.
No, most of it, like the travel now is either going to be, we have factories either in Saltillo, Mexico, which is just outside of Monterrey, across the mountains. That place is fun. Saltillo it's like an hour and a half outside of Monterrey. It's up in the mountains. It's a mile up, and it's fall down there. So going down there, it was like effectively like we were back in like Portland weather. Because it was foggy, and like driving through the Mexican high plains desert scrub brush in the middle of fog was a weird experience. I almost wanted to play if I could had I remembered at the time cue up the Great Southern Land. A song from Young Einstein. The very much a montage. Kind of like a montage song to backing traveling through wild wilderness. Anyway, also have what else do we have? There's a plant in Santiago, which I believe is like an hour outside of Mexico City. And there are plants in Mount Holly in Cleveland. However, not the Mount Holly or Cleveland you're thinking of. Mount Holly in Cleveland, North Carolina.
Okay.
Both are about an hour-ish outside of Charlotte, or about a couple hours away from where our sister lives.
Yeah. That's crazy. The first time in my life, I think, when the boys and I went to the Renaissance Festival with Kalis and his family, I think that was the first time I actually drove past the entrance to Mount Holly.
Oh, yeah, you were never a skier, were you? That's why.
I've skied twice with Danzig and Marzak and everything, and that did not go very well. But we continue. Well, we haven't done it lately, but we would go up to my buddy Danzig's cabin up near Boyne Mountain, Boyne City. And because his parents had they call it a cabin, it was a house up in like Lake Charlevoix. But we'd go up there and I'd try to ski, and they'd give me pointers, and I did okay. But we'd go up there for a couple of years, and we would just go for like a 4-day weekend for a ski weekend. But we just would stop going to the hill or to the mountain, and then we would just basically just drink and play euchre all weekend, which
it became
pretty fun too.
It just became deer camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I'd say. Which is fun.
Indeed. All right, actually, let's take a quick break and reload. I need to. I am drinking a mix of Diet Squirt and Kraken Dark Rum.
Delicious.
Kraken. It's a Kraken.
Right, I'm a throw a whiz.
All right, you do that. Let's take a quick break.
I haven't got into vinyl at all yet, but my one buddy who's big, he's still a musician and everything, but he's like, just go to Salvation Army and find there's always good speakers there. Oh yeah, you can get a decent turntable there. He's like, you don't have to buy the new Sonos or anything like that. You can outfit your house with like, speakers in different rooms and a receiver and turntable and everything for like at most maybe a couple $100.
Oh yes, very much so. The other interesting thing is that Goodwill, especially once they got wise to and embraced online auctions a good 6 years ago. So, because I can remember somebody unfortunately wised up and realized that because they were getting so many like Legos, which had a lot more value than would otherwise be assumed, they would they would comb through the donations, grab out all the Legos, either in boxes or people just like, my kid doesn't play with these anymore. You guys have them, and just sell them. So like they have the collections of Star Wars Legos, and just the prices for those things would be insane.
Yeah.
So, all right, you have anything?
Well, I don't even care about the. I'm not necessarily going to get into vinyl because I know that's a slippery slope, but I'm more interested in just having, and I had speaker towers and a receiver, which of course I sold on Craigslist, but I wish I still had them. But that would be more of an importance now to have. Okay, let me get a somewhat updated receiver that has Bluetooth on it. I can just connect my phone to.
Right.
I can just roll through my music or through YouTube and then have that pumped through different speakers in my house, which hopefully eventually would be the case, but whatever.
Well, yeah, you just go into a component. I mean, I lucked out in that I still have our family basement 1984 pre-remote era digital receiver.
Of course you do.
And our father's 1967 era Pioneer, tan and wood Pioneer speaker sets, which are awesome. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if I ever wanted, I don't think I never plan to sell those, but it's like, if I ever plan to sell, like, no, those things are going out for like $2,000 per. Just
whatever. I obviously not surprised at all that you still have those, but that's fine. The actual worth of those things, who knows? But whatever.
Yeah,
use those till they kick, and then whatever.
Yeah, it's a thing where at least, I mean, in our modern era, the flat screen has an audio out, running an audio out into the RC, just go from the RCA jacks out of the TV into the back of the receiver, and hey, Stranger Things soundtracks bumping in clear stereo on a great little on a great EQ, built-in EQ on this receiver. So
yeah, not on the Stranger Things tip, but I did watch the updated reboot of Magnificent Seven tonight.
How was that? And, I heard mixed.
What's that?
I heard mixed reviews.
It was terrible. I mean, it was so dumb. I mean, if you just want to get into a movie where there's just a bunch of like shoot 'em up stuff, then okay, that's for you. But it was just. It was just like so dumb. There was no plot. It had these huge stars in it, but it's like nobody's funny but the one big oaf guy. And if you haven't seen it, you'll see it. There's one big oaf guy that was pretty entertaining, but like Chris Pratt's in it, who can be charming as all get out.
Right.
And he can be funny. Denzel's in it, who can be funny in his own way. He's boring as can be too. It's just,
which is a crime.
It's just dumb. And like, there's like, not to be a spoiler or anything, but there's a big point where there's a Gatling gun that gets brought out that, according to the movie, like a Gatling gun can just level a city from like 200 yards away. And they yell and like somebody yells Gatling gun like 7 different times. Like in the span of 5 minutes, it's like, yeah, we get it. It's a friggin' Gatling gun. I don't know. It's just
when the characters of your classic film remake have all played Doom way back in the 19th century and other modern video games.
It's just super dumb and predictable. You can like Ethan Hawke, you know exactly what's going to happen when you meet him and see throughout the course. You know exactly what's going to happen in the movie. There's like 1,000 deaths in the movie. Like these 7 dudes kill 1 bajillion people, and like
amigos are coming out of the side, amigos are coming out of the street.
No, it is like Three Amigos. There are parallels with Three Amigos with this stupid ass movie, and like the end of the movie. And if anybody is listening to this, they can fast forward or whatever. But like the end of the movie, everything kind of gets resolved, of course, if you saw the original. And there's just like a bajillion bodies on the ground, and everybody's like happy and like hugging and crying and laughing. There's just dead bodies everywhere.
A river of blood and viscera just going down the center of the town.
We made it. Oh, it's just the dumbest. It is the dumbest, and it's 2 hours and like 10 or 15 minutes.
Wow.
Oh my God. Anyway, sorry. It was just.
It's disappointing because it's like you think of like a western led by a western starring and fronted by Denzel Washington with like Chris Pratt. There is like
and Chris Pratt.
Yeah, it's
they're
like,
both they're co-starring. They're 100% co-starring for sure.
Which is just
anyway.
Yeah, earlier this week, wound up. Let's see, what did we? Last night we wound up going to see. Yeah, no, last night was. What the hell was last night? Last night was Thursday. This was like the first week in like forever. We actually, I went and saw like 3 films in a row. Monday night was. This week involved Sunday night. Leaving my house at about Sunday about 8:45. It was going to go like, oh, you know what? The local, Star Trek Beyond, the latest Star Trek film, has finally hit the cheapies. It's time to go finally see that. Stepped outside, looked over. There is somebody passed out at the bottom of our steps from our porch, which is about ground level, only a couple steps up. Just passed out right there, and looked down like, oh, great. Like, hey, dude, you okay? You okay? And no response. Like, okay. So Rachel, my girlfriend, calls it in. In fact, I even like, yeah, you might want to call it in. Because I watch too much media myself, and this is how you talk in the real world. She calls it in, and I'm kind of poking the guy with my toe, and I'm like, hey, dude, you okay? Are you breathing? You better not be a corpse. And I'm deranged, said the guy with the older bedraggled guy with like long-haired beard, and then promptly went back to sleep. So that kind of tossed out the movie-going plans. Had to sat on what is effectively my stoop, waiting for 5-0 to show up.
Oh, why?
I would have felt like a schmuck with
whatever.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where I don't know. I didn't feel right with I could not tell if it was a But then again, there are bars on our front door, so I guess they would have been secure. But it didn't feel right. Like, okay, well, that's taken care of. I'm going to go off and drink cheap beer at the Star Trek movie. So we just kind of sat there and waited. I'm like, hey, dude, you want any water or anything? Like, no, I don't want any water. And he goes back to like trying to sleep, not quite face down, but effectively face down on the sidewalk. Portland 5, the Portland Popo show up. A short woman officer is like poking at the guy. He's like, "Sir, are you okay?" Of course, fortunately wearing her safety gloves.
Yeah,
right. She calls it in. Does not. Fortunately, her backup shows, and they're talking to the guy, and they're like, hey, are you gonna be able to walk home okay, or do you want us to get an ambulance? Like, no, my arm's not broken. I lied about that. So I don't know. So they wound up taking him to detox. At one point, what I thought was rather amusing and happened upon unremarked was. The backup cop actually said, when trying to get this, I'm guessing homeless dude into the back of their squad car, actually just said, you're killing me, Smalls. It was like, wow, it's like, wow, that's still I did not imagine that to be, wow, who knew that Portland police were 90s kids? Who remembered this?
Oh yeah. I had a marketing person give me the "you're killing me, Smalls" like a week ago.
Wow.
And yeah. Apparently that's still
a thing.
Relevant. It's still relevant.
Oh, culture is a weird thing. They get him in, even though he was arguing to them about how his pants were falling down and he wasn't wearing underwear. Both facts were true. So And so they took on. It's like, sir, you didn't really need to stay. Once you called in, you could have gone off. I'm like, no, that's fine. I would have felt like a schnook or anything had I left. So that was. So we ended up I came back inside and we watched Drunk History for the rest of the night, and it was great. Monday nights.
I think they started a new season of that. Because I watched DVR kicked up and it started recording episodes again. So I think Drunk History's back in action again right now.
Yeah, they're on season 4.
Yeah.
And I believe if the place that I go for torrents is accurate, Drunk History UK is in their second season too, which is great. And it's one of those things where if anything called for competing American and UK versions, it's definitely. I mean, it is a concept where it's like. I'm surprised they don't have they don't have like Drunk History Ireland, Drunk History Scotland, Drunk History Wales, Drunk History. Like I said, it's one of those it's one of those shows that you can, much like any game show or even Married with Children, you could syndicate and kind of spin off into different lands and just hey, as long as you subtitle in English, bring it back. You can sell it in America.
It's a repeatable model.
Very much so.
The human factor there. I was listening to your one of the podcasts, the Music Rack,
right?
Podcast too, and with the white. Did you check out the White Long recording when they were on KEXP?
No, I did not.
By chance? Oh, that's a good one.
Was it live was it live or was it them just drunk in the studio or what?
Well, the KEXP they do it live.
Oh, KEXP, yeah, okay, is okay.
That's Seattle, I believe, is what.
Yeah, it's the station attached to the Experience Music Project. It is what Bill Gates did certain a lot of public-facing things with his money, his Microsoft money. His partner Paul Allen funded not only the Experience Music Project, but also the science fiction museum that's attached to it, and I believe KEXP came from that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's legit and it's recorded well, and I know they're a lot of them are from, I think 2 or 3 of them are from Canada, but one of them's from Michigan. I think the bass player lady is from Michigan. I don't know where, but anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, White Lung was the thing where I would always hear about them, and I think they're always listed on Bandcamp or on CBC3 as being out of Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I another two. I forget which Reviver. I just bought one of the Reviver. It's not their newest one. It's like 3 or 4 albums ago.
Right.
I forget what it is. It's like 2011 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that is great.
Oh yeah.
They have a nice mix of genres and eras almost, or something like that though. But they're good tunes.
Very much so. That was, like I said, and that was a band that I discovered at. In fact, when you were here, you did go with us to Katie O'Brien's for I think one of the Saturday brunch or God knows what. And for a while, in fact, I think they are still doing this, depending on if they are home sports games. They would book punk shows and stand-up shows on weekend nights. And just one night I was in there. I think it was one of the, at my previous travel job. Coming home from the airport, just stopping there and like, okay, I just give me my chicken breast salad and just hanging out, having a beer. Mm-hmm. And then they start playing, and like, wow, this is exceptional. This was awesome, and that is how I discovered them.
They were there?
Yeah, no, they headlined that night. That's how I discovered them, because they headlined the night that I was at Katie O'Brien's. Oh. That's how I found them out. Like I said, it was cool. Serendipity. And
do you know where they're from? I mean, they sound like they're either Canadian or Southern California.
Split the difference. They're from Olympia. In other words, okay. Like 2 hours north of here.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know if you're into them or not. Did you happen to check out the new Bon Iver album that just came out like a week ago? Where you gonna look for comfort? And if it's ever gonna happen. So as I'm standing at the station, I saw adverts for it. I have not heard it yet. I have not. I think the first Bon Iver album. Well, check that. The last Bon Iver album, I think I heard, and it was kind of like hit and miss. But the like his dude's side project in Volcano Choir was. You want to talk about the point where God, that was. All over. That was all over XM radio and XMU for I was like, wow, this is. There's a couple songs on there for the second Volcano Choir album that was just just transcendent. Oh, you sound like Bill Hader in Hot Rod, but for sure that Volcano Choir is great too, but that's. In the topic of travel stories, that I'll try to buy a new album when I have like a long flight, and I did that for the Austin trip, and that kind of saved me on the way back because I was a little bit overserved the night before. Yeah. So on the flight back luckily I had a direct flight from Austin back to Detroit this week. And it was I don't know what the names of the planes are, but it was the flights that the seats are 2 by 2, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, with the aisleway in the middle.
What do you have at this point? Do you have Delta Plus yet, or
I never travel enough to get status. Never. I just every year I always barely not get there with status, which is super fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say I learned the hard way. Whatever you can do is try to consolidate your mileage, and so even my most recent trip to northern Mexico, because I am still I think like gold status on Delta and I think like silver gold on United. I flew down there on. I flew down there on United, and I still got 2 auto upgrades because it's that's how it goes.
Well, that's awesome. Into like select comfort or into like business class.
This auto upgrades into it was business class, which is effectively except it was business class. It was first class only for the short leg of the trip from Monterrey to Houston, which is about an hour and change, as opposed to the leg of the trip Houston to Portland, which is like 3.5 to 4 hours, which is the one that you really want. Like, no, F that. I want give me open bar and an upgrade on that one.
Of course, that's how it works out. Well, you still got that though. That's cool.
My week was Sunday night, failed attempt at seeing Star Trek. Monday that happens. Monday, say the hell with it. Go over and went and saw Star Trek Beyond. Enjoyed it a lot. Found it definitely far better than the previous new Trek, and probably the best one of all of the reboots, in that they deliberately Well, Simon Pegg had a Star Trek fan himself, had a lot of at least wrote more than one draft of the script. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of emphasis on like characters and character interaction, which was great. That was Monday. Tuesday, get home, take a quick nap, head over to Beulah Land to watch the VP debate. Get alternately annoyed / put off by the VP debate. Look at playing around like, oh look, the 7:00 round of films is starting over at the movie. It went over, watched Hunt for the Wilder People, the follow up, the New Zealand film that was the follow up to What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, is it really?
Oh yes, yeah, no, very much so.
Kidding.
Yeah, it's except in fact both Rhys Davies from Flight of the Conchords and God, I'm gonna forget his name. Is Jermaine? Jermaine is not in there, but the director is.
The Wakiki.
What is his name? Hunt for He played the protagonist in. He played the main dude in.
Wakiki. He's got a weird name, but he was always with Flight of the Conchords.
I've never actually seen an episode of Flight of the Conchords. That's the weird thing. Okay.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Dude,
Taika Waititi. Yeah. He shows up in the film as a pastor.
Lives in life. Seems like there's no way out. Like a sheep trapped in a maze designed by wolves. And you know that if you're ever in that situation, there are always two doors to choose from. And through the first door, it's easy to get through that door, and on the other side, waiting for you, are all the nummiest treats you can imagine. Fanta, Doritos, LMP, burger rings, Coke Zero. But you know what? There's also another door. Not the burger ring door, not the Fanta door. Another door that's harder to get through. Guess what's on the other side? Anyone want to take a guess?
Vegetables?
No, not vegetable. No.
Jesus?
You would think Jesus. I thought Jesus the first time I come across that door. It's not Jesus. It's another door. And guess what's on the other side of that door?
Jesus.
Jesus, yeah, Jesus. It's tricky like that, Jesus. So let us pray to Jesus, please, to make it a bit easier to get through those doors and to find you and your bounty of delicious confectionery. Thank you, Selena. Take it away.
With a beard, and it's kind of a thing. You're looking at him, and it's very much similar to how. Similar to the film that we saw the following night. So we saw Hunt for the following night. The film we saw also had the film director as a clergyman. It's one of those films where if you can get a chance, see it on a huge screen, just for like much like with. Everything from like Terrence Malick to even like Red Dawn, like just the outdoor photography for this film is just exquisite. Oh. Except that you're in the bush, but in this case it is the mountainous jungle wilderness of New Zealand, where you have this slightly older version of like the chubby kid from Up gets hooked up with a family in on a farm in New Zealand, and through trials and travails winds up surviving and going kind of like going indie in the forest with his adopted unofficial uncle, who he calls uncle, just straight calls him uncle, played by Sam Neill. And so it's Sam Neill and this kid stomping around in the New Zealand bush, and it's It's great. It's kind of in they are hounded by New Zealand CPS, and it's great times. Between it's not quite as funny as What We Do in Shadows, but I think it is a better made and better written film. So definitely I recommend on that. That was Tuesday, and I can remember just sitting there in my seat in the lower host, I skipped out on the debate. I'm watching this. I think I made the right decision, and everybody's like, yeah, man, this is bullshit. That's a great film. You did right. That was Tuesday. Wednesday, after getting enough people together, went and we all went out. In fact, I think. Wound up, and we all went up because the Laurelhurst has their weekly revivals of classic films, and this being October, this week the revival was the original 1973 Wicker Man.
Oh, that's a terrible movie.
Well, no, the sequel's a terrible film. The original one is.
No, it's just pointless. We watched it, and it was like, oh, it's the greatest horror movie ever.
It's not the horror. It's far more uncanny than it is horror.
Come. It is time to keep your appointment with the Wicker Man.
I don't know.
I know they did the remake, and it was I didn't watch the remake, but
you don't need to. It's kind of thing where
we watched it.
Yeah,
we watched it. Me and like Kaylis and Andy, and I think a couple other guys. We watched the original Wicker Man. I don't even know how long ago it was, but it was just like there's nothing happens. Nothing happens in that dumb movie. It's super long, and they try to build up suspense, and it doesn't really pay off. And whatever. Maybe I'm off. I watched it one time, and I was over. I was done with it. But anyway.
I was going into it. I had never seen the whole thing. I had never seen the whole thing too. The only thing I found in the film that really put me off was the fact that Christopher Lee did not have facial hair.
All right, well, let's move on because I can't talk about the Wicker Man. But however, you brought up Red Dawn. Magnificent Seven, to bring it back to that reminded me of Red Dawn because at the end of it, certain people die, and it's just like Red Dawn when I forget if it was Jennifer Grey.
There's a voiceover over a monument by Leah Thompson.
Absolutely, it was the epilogue or whatever. There's a straight up epilogue.
The third American
is fucking Red Dawn. This movie is Red Dawn in a western because there was there's this big there's this infiltration of this power at B, and the people that were there are trying to defend their home turf. Certain people die, certain people live. The home team wins. However, at the end of it, there's certain people that die, and then there's whoever it's Back to the Future girl or Jennifer Grey that have this epilogue of talking about
with her old nose.
Right. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I got to move on from Magnificent Seven because it was not.
Yeah. When's the last time you've seen Red Dawn?
I watch that probably once a year, the original.
Yeah, I was gonna say Red Dawn is one of those films, especially if you reading up on it, and if you believe Milius that all of the really because he said shot in 83, 84, released in 85. If you believe Milius that he just wanted to do a bunch of teens surviving in the wilderness without the much more overt or external, just the much more overt bullshit Cold War stuff that the studio foisted on him, the survivalist militia shit. There's a lot of they shot it in. I think they shot it in Wyoming. Yeah, shot it in Wyoming, and it's all the outdoor photography of that is beautiful. It's
great.
Yeah, huge panoramic, not quite Terrence Malick, but we bring up good.
Whatever.
Excellent, yeah.
Plus, it's part of our childhood, which says something. But it's also, it's an awesome movie. I like Milius a lot. I think he's a crazy person. I think he's great.
Right.
But I think that movie has kind of a special place from Latchkey and everything else. I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
so that's why I watch it. That's why I watch it probably once a year. And then they did the remake, which they filmed around Detroit. They filmed in Ferndale and a couple other places.
Yeah, Detroit, Ferndale, Pontiac, and
right, which
they sat on for like 2 years. I think they sat on for like 2 years, and it was part of the MGM bankruptcy, and they had to go in and like, oh wait, we can't, we have to we have to change the nationality of the invade. Much like with Homefront, a video game also written primarily by John Milius. Both the Red Dawn, if I'm remembering correctly, and I may or may not, both the Red Dawn remake as well as Homefront, the video game, it's kind of both had to change the antagonist invaders from the Red Chinese to the Red North Koreans, because hey, one of these two groups is a target market for our company's international promotional arms, and we can't exactly have them being the bad guys. So let's go in and start redubbing dialogue and using CGI to change all of the flags and decorations and yada yada yada.
Which, I mean, the remake had what's his nuts, Hutcherson in it, who was
and Hemsworth.
And Hemsworth, those are two like huge teen actor guys, and that like the movie didn't come out forever. It's like, what's going on with this? And the original had, it had Swayze, Harry Dean Stanton, had
Charlie Sheen,
C.
Thomas Howell,
Yeah, I mean, it was anyway. Moving on.
Oh no, I was just say the original as a companion piece to say the Outsiders in terms of the cast, because I think it shared like 80 to 90% of the cast. But I can just remember the last time I saw Red Dawn was up here when they did during a Hecklevision, and ladies and gentlemen, if you ever get a chance, go to a Hecklevision in town. Watching Hecklevision, you realize, hey, wait a minute, where do they get these horses? And more importantly, how do they feed these horses if they are like scraggly, plus or minus, starving partisans in the hills?
And how dare they heckle that movie? That's an American classic.
All of the white kids are like clean faced and clean shaven. Anyway. Did I tell you the story about when when was it? When I was in the northeast of Spokane, and the cops showed up at the customer site that I was working at?
I'm gonna say probably no.
In Colville, Washington, not necessarily, not at Kettle Falls, which I believe is the larger town out the river, but this is Colville between. Oh wow, this is between Spokane, Clayton, Shawela, and Cozy Nook, and God knows what else. This was not necessarily the first time that the emergency first responders had been called to a work site that I'd been working on, but this was definitely the first time that the owner of this was a lumber yard out there that when I was still working on industrial fire safety electronics, the first time that the owner himself wandered out to where myself and his foreman were working on some on like testing some electronics, and like it's like, yeah, you guys might want to just stay away from the parking lot for a little while. Like, really? Why? Like, yeah, we kind of have a hostage situation going on out there right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, what had happened was apparently some guy had been holding his two younger, I guess very younger brothers hostage while their parents were either out, or maybe he was their main caretaker for 2 or 3 days now. And at some point they got the idea like, well, hey, can we can you drive us to this lumber yard where we want to go in and we want to apply for jobs? And the guy was like, sure, okay. So he drives them there. They go in, they're like, yeah, our older brother is out in the parking lot. We think he is armed, and he is definitely off his meds. Oh, yeah. So we at some point we kind of like stopped our testing pattern just to kind of watch what happened. And you look out to the parking lot and you see, and like I said, this is deep northeast Washington State, like full on like Twin Peaks landscape. You see everything from like a couple state troopers to like county sheriff to local cops, whatever, just coming in on various cruiser. And it's the thing where they eventually they were able to talk the guy down and kind of walk him to their squad car, and everything was okay, and escorted the younger brothers back to their home, and it all worked out. And so we were able to they all drove off, and we were like, okay, wow, that was weird. And the guy I was working with there said, yeah, that was weird. That was not the weirdest thing that's happened to this place in the last 4 months. What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, we had an employee who we fired, and he got really pissed off, and he got up on something. So he came back here one night and he slashed like all of our control electronics, and he screwed up a bunch of machinery and all sorts of crap. And so we had to call the cops on him. So that was that was my memories of Colville, Washington. I'm trying to think of other. It's kind of a thing where, that particular job had me go from everything from gourmet dog food factories in Kansas to I think like corn handling plants outside of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where at one point myself and the electrician were up on a 40-foot lift trying to fix the electronics, and then all of a sudden a massive electrical storm rolls in over top of us, and we both mutually agreed upon and realized that being atop of a 40-foot tall lightning rod during an electrical storm was probably not the best idea.
Well, I like the travel where you can what food options you have.
How so?
Well, like, what's an example? So, okay. So in Michigan, there's not a lot of Chick-fil-A options.
Okay.
However, at DTW, if you're in Terminal A down at the far end, like the high 70s, there's like a Qdoba and a couple other things, but there's also Chick-fil-A, which is pretty fantastic. So, if you fly out, you can try to plan around that. And the Chick-fil-A, I think, gosh, that's such a fantastic option. There's like, you just know that there's one in Atlanta, there's one in Orlando, there's a couple of them around.
Well, it's Chick-fil-A. It's kind of like popped up everywhere. It's a place that I try to shy away from once they went kind of they started externalizing their politics a bit too much. But yeah.
I look. I don't hold them. I don't hold them hostage to their politics. They just have fantastic chicken sandwiches. So, which is nice. And I there's certain culinary options that I can think of. I know that like Minneapolis has that weird, kind of a cool sushi bar where you order everything on the iPads that are sitting out there.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is in one of the terminals, one of the more posh terminals. Which, oh man, is God. I've been to that place, and it's a I can't even remember what the name of it is, but I know exactly. I can mentally picture that boarding section. The cool thing about Minneapolis was that in the C terminal, there was a place at Minneapolis which actually serves like ramen and udon soup, and it is exquisite. But it's in the C terminal, and I cannot remember the name of this.
Sounds fancy. It might be is it not the same place as the sushi place?
No, it's a different place. There are multiple places in that airport that serve sushi, but I cannot remember.
That's surprising.
One I can relate. Another story I can relate is the God. This would have been Stanley Cup of what? Either 2011 or 2012. It was when when Vancouver was in the playoffs. it was Vancouver versus Boston, which I believe was...
I don't know.
First year, okay, this was the first year I was traveling heavily for the day job. This was 2011. Had to go up to Prince George, BC, which meant that I had to bounce through Vancouver Airport. Going into Vancouver Airport, it was a thing where, because it was also, major international airport, you had multiple families there who had been flown in by the teams, especially the Boston teams, where every member of the family was just completely decked out with every color-coded and licensed bit of accoutrement that you could get. And I can remember just wandering around looking at the monitors, and all of the airport monitors, which were on CBC or God knows what, had time till puck drop, like that day.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. So hopped on an airport, flew up to Prince George, and I can remember wandering around town, wound up in a sushi joint in Prince George, BC, where all the sushi chefs had just specialized Canuck sushi chef, I can't think of the term, but sushi chef headbands with the logo on there. So I hung out in there and just watched the first or I can't remember if it was the first and second periods of the game with these guys, and just walking around this small walking around Prince George, which is a smaller city definitely, and seeing all the signs on the businesses saying closing at 6 p.m. to watch the game. On you'd see these things on 90% of the city, except for this place. Okay, here we go. Give me a beer, and I want to watch I'll hang out with you guys and watch the game.
Yeah. Oh,
and then eventually watched a couple of things, and then said, okay, well, it is what it is, and just walked back to the, I don't know if it's a Hilton or a Marriott, or walked back to the hotel I was staying at, but went down to the hotel bar and watched the rest of the game with older Canadian guys of 1,001 accents. Where at one point I was using the work laptop to going to the CBC website, and they were posting camera feeds to here's what's going on outside of CBC headquarters, and the entire what would turn out to be a fucking riot, literally, of people just just indistinguishable people, just they were streaming external camera feeds from all the people just watching the huge screens in Vancouver, because this was, I think this is the final playoff game, and it was just a hell of a time to watch this what I believe was the final playoff between two teams. I believe the Bruins goalie being a former Michigan player. That was just, again, memorable time. And then finding out, oh, by the way, there were, if not exactly riots, at least white person sports riots happening in the streets of Vancouver that night, because the Canucks lost.
Yeah, we were. That's funny. We were at a work trip in Orlando, because in the great world of higher ed, most of the conferences you go to are in Orlando. But me and my counterpart Brian were, I forget what bar restaurant we were at, but it was probably something dumb like a B-Dubs or whatever else. And I just remember walking in and looking up on the screen, and the Wings were playing Montreal, and we overheard a couple guys say, or one guy say that, I wish there were a couple of Wings fans right here so we could rip on them. And then my buddy Brian, my buddy Brian that we worked together with, he was great. He goes, "We're from Detroit," and he goes, "Oh!"
Did someone call?
These two guys were from Montreal, and we're down in Florida. They were at a different conference altogether, but it was pretty funny, because it's guys from Canada are pretty easy to get along with because if you have a couple beers, strangely enough, they like to get along with you or whatever. But I
very much so.
Yeah, I remember how exciting that was because the Wings were getting blown out like 6-0 to Montreal. I forget. This had to be like 4 years ago or something like that. But
I can't remember if Montreal. I can't remember what was the last year. Not that I necessarily pay attention to the pro leagues that much, but what was the last year that Montreal was a threatening team?
They're okay actually because they had Carey Price. They've had some good goalies.
Mm-hmm.
So they've actually been decent, much more so than Toronto, because Toronto always sucks every year, which makes zero sense.
Well, you said it, I didn't.
Yeah, but anyway, Montreal is actually competitive. But shit, I don't know. I mean, it's whatever. It was just fun and exciting because we ended up sitting at that bar and then going to another bar till 2:15 or 2:30 till whatever time they made us leave, hanging out with a bunch of Canadians, and all they do is just have.
Sir, would you please go? Would you please leave? We need to shut down, eh?
Oh yeah. All they do is just talk shit and just have a good time, and that's
right.
like, okay, I can get on board with this. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
God, I was gonna say you were reminding me of when I was one of the first times I was in Kelowna, BC, which is the entire opposite side. It's in the Okanagan Valley. It is above. It's one of the things that's far. It's closer to Spokane than it is Seattle if you head north from Washington State. Mm-hmm. Kelowna, I can remember. God, I can't remember. This was a handful of years ago, but going to Kelowna and getting in there, and then it's kind of just sitting around with like, wow, I don't have anything to do. I'm done with hitting all our customers. I have nothing to do in town. Got back in town into the city that I was going to fly out of, and had nothing to do. Except for like, okay, well, let's go see. And I'd driven by at least two or more, probably like 3 or 4 like signs advertising like open mic night and whatnot. And so I wound up in a comedy club in downtown Kelowna, BC. But it was the time of year. It should be illustrated. It was the time. Luck had it that it was the time of year that it was the final week that all of the university students were there, and in BC the drinking age is 19, not 21. So I was sitting in the back, near, always sit near where the actual comics are, not where the punters are, and just so you can hear the commentary and listening to. A bunch of like just drunk ass 19-year-olds quote lines from Storage Wars and just go, yep, 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 yep. Like, in the middle of whoever's on stage, in the middle of their patter, in the middle of their joke, in the middle of their routine, just, almost kind of like sub WWF catchphrase yelling. That to the point where at some point during the night, the older, more experienced open micers and comics just started ripping into them. It was, that was kind of a thing where I think I even, it was a great night. It was one of those things. Actually, it was one of the first open mics that I actually sat all the way through. Because I only have a couple beers, I can drive home and then talk to everybody afterwards and collected up a couple of names and then connected everybody on Facebook and it worked out. So it was just I just remember that night of just kind of like wow, this is this is what happens when you let dumbass Canadian 19-year-olds drink and head to open mic nights.
Yeah, the worst or best work trip I think I ever had was to the Navajo Nation in northeast Arizona to Dene College, which was rather interesting. That was I forget. Well, they had something where like you had to. They wouldn't like. They wouldn't close a deal unless you met with them face to face, which was tough if you live in Metro Detroit and they're in Northeast Arizona.
Right. Again, how hard is it to? Yeah, it's like, can you come down to a city that has a major airport? Oh, I'll be down there in like 8 hours.
So I gleaned after about a year of a sales cycle that I had to go down and do a presentation and meet all the people and the whole thing, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. So I embarked on this trip at my last company, not the current one, but
right.
I you just book trips for convenience, and then the day comes and random shit happens. So I flew from Detroit to Chicago, and then when I was in Chicago, an interesting thing happened where the air traffic control tower got caught on fire. Which is typically not something you want to happen because the entire United States kind of gets just throttled for travel and everything gets shut down. So I was in Chicago at O'Hare, and the airport shut down for 8 hours. So there's just people and humanity just laid about all over the place. It was not cool.
I think I was also affected by that the headline FBI contract worker set fire at FAA center, tried to kill himself. That was I'm trying to remember what trip that was, but I remember I would remember I got affected by that too because whoever did whatever flights didn't go through Chicago got rerouted into whatever city I had to go through. So
which was great because I was in Chicago and just ended up sitting there for 7, 8 hours. And then by the end of the night, I finally got from Chicago to Denver. And it wasn't to my destination yet. So I got to Denver, and then I had to go to a hotel because it was midnight or 1 o'clock, and there was no more flights for the night. So it was funny because you go to the service desk, and I'm standing next to these there was a fireman convention in town. I'm talking to these 50-year-old firemen, and they're just good old boys. All they want to do is get drunk.
Right.
So there's 6 of them there, and then there's me. And we're just chit-chatting or whatever. Then we get a shuttle bus to the hotel, and I stay in some random hotel in Denver. And then next morning, I get up and I fly from Denver to Durango, Colorado, which is in the southeast corner, which is a really cool city, actually. It's very hippie kind of city. And I had a bunch of time to kill, so whatever, I went out and about. But then I had to drive from Durango down to Farmington, or I forget what the name of the city. New Mexico.
Farmington, Bloomfield. Yeah, it's all
northeast
of the Navajo Nation. Yeah,
right, northeast New Mexico. And I got there the next day, and then I had to basically tell them hey, I'm not going to be there. We have to because I had a big presentation, so we had to reschedule. So the second day I had to it was another travel day, so I got to New Mexico. And then the third day we rescheduled the presentation, so I drove because there's nowhere to stay in the Navajo Nation. There's no hotels. So I had to drive 2 hours from New Mexico. From northwest New Mexico to northeast Arizona. I bought a bunch of water and jerky because you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
and it was oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say at some point it's this was this before Airbnb became a huge thing, or was it existing when you did this?
I'm sure it was existing, but I did not look at that as an option.
Okay, makes sense.
So I was in Farmington, New Mexico, which had great barbecue and great Tex-Mex food.
Right.
But then like the college was 2 hours kind of like west into the frickin' desert.
Kayenta or
I had a
Holbrook
rental
or
car.
yeah.
I bought like a bunch of water and like jerky and all my stuff, and I had to drive through it was it looked like a movie. You're like driving in the desert and there's these big things that looks like Devil's Tower and all these other things. It was amazing. But I had to drive forever, like up a mountain and down a mountain, and it was nuts.
Yeah, I have done similar things. I got flown into Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I got sent to Dubois, Wyoming, which is driving through Jackson Hole and through the national forest through there. But Dubois, Wyoming was got to go to the. Let us describe it as the world's, as the signs described it, the museum featuring the world's largest jackalope. Where the entire, like I said, there's a small little town, but damn if they didn't have a full-on 8-foot tall jackalope that you could climb onto, and the nice young lady working the cashier would take your photo, but in just looking around there, it's just the number of so like a deviant art site, the number of submitted artworks of jackalopes and jackalope-like art surrounding the place was just exquisite. It was like I said, it was one of those things where it's the photo of myself that I took after I got out of I finished visiting with the customer and setting up their system that morning. The photo of myself, like, riding a jackalope, like, yeah, it's currently I'm keeping it as my LinkedIn photo, just because. So it's oh yeah, no, it's
it's a different world out there. I had to go into. They had a ceremonial room that was a dirt floor that I had to go in and experience.
Okay.
And
y'all got beer here or whiskey or or is that like it was like hilariously cultured
to everybody. And it's a Navajo Nation college. It's a tribal college.
Right.
And then there's me, and for the people that, God bless them, may hopefully still be listening, I'm a big, giant white dude. So It's kind of like, hey, everybody, my people took your land. And
and fucked you over 150 years ago.
Good. So don't just look past that and go ahead and buy my software.
Yeah,
no
please.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of
we'll call it cool after that. Yeah.
Because there were literally like whatever American Indians, and then also like people from like Africa and wherever that were just over here trying to get the job.
Right.
And so it was a very interesting dynamic because there's me, big giant white guy, like, hey everybody, I'm a big dancing bear. Everybody look at me. I'm making you laugh. Hey, look at me.
I grew up in the Chris Farley era, and I took certain tips from his performance.
Right. And then there's just people that have darker skin than I do. And anyway, so it all worked out well because they ended up buying the software, thank God. But,
hey, that justified that trip. Why not? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. But it was like a 5-day, even after the presentation, went back to New Mexico again. And then they canceled my flight the next day. I had to pick up another flight. It took me 5 days. 5 days for this, like, basically a 3-hour presentation. Yeah. It was bananas, and but it was fun. I mean, it was, once you travel a lot by yourself, you learn how to do it, and it's
after a certain while, it's like, God invented teleconferencing for a reason,
or just kind of experiencing stuff on your own. Just like you don't have to have somebody else there, and you can just kind of go out there on your own and figure stuff out, thankfully. But It's like, oh my gosh. After that, it's just like, yeah, we don't need to do these on-site presentations anymore because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Hi, everybody. Just giving you a heads up that this episode is kind of an experimental one. It features a test recording that my brother John and I did a couple months ago. He lives outside of Detroit, Michigan. So after I recorded our convo, I decided to make it an episode. We talk about, let's just say, work travel stories, going to open mic nights in Canada, his take on the Magnificent Seven remake. I tell a story about a hostage situation I was in the deep backwoods of Washington, and a lot more. Stay tuned. I think you're going to like it. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a dork living in Portland, Oregon, who spent too many years listening to podcasts and not doing anything creative. This is my attempt to rectify that, to create and contribute something where I talk to people about their cultural obsessions and try to give some recommendations of my own. Welcome to Giving the Mic to the Wrong Person.
Expense reports are tricky. I mean, I did mine today for the past 2.5 trips that I've had, and it's just obviously it's a pain in the butt, but we've got per diem.
Okay, yeah, whereas at this job I do not, so.
Oh, so you just gotta save receipts and stuff then.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So at least the good thing about per diem, it's just like, okay, here's what it is, but you don't want to take advantage of, so like the last trip, when I was just in, Austin this week, it was just for internal meetings. So I was there from Monday to Wednesday, and then all of Tuesday was every meal, everything was totally covered.
Did they take you to Torchy's?
They did not take me to Torchy's. However, I did see Torchy's now that I believe there's a Torchy's en route from the airport to downtown, if I remember correctly.
Yes, there is. My buddy Chris, when he that was the first place we stopped when he picked me up. This was last year, I think, because the last time I went down to Austin was, I think, May of 2015.
Yeah. Well, the number of, the nice part was that I flew down with one of our SCs that happens to live in Livonia as well. But so we got to catch up and get to kind of meet a little bit because we saw each other around the office, but spent some time together. But in the cab ride, because there's no Uber, there's no Lyft, on the last day that we learned there were some, I forget what other.
They don't, they don't have Lyft down there?
They don't have Lyft. They don't have Uber. They had something I think called Fare.
Do they have Halo?
I don't
Hilo?
know.
Oh, maybe that's an older one.